And the first big thing is not directly related to Feast Week, but it's directly related to the number one team in college basketball, according to my rankings. And that's the Purdue Boilermakers, a team that beat Texas Tech, a respective last week top 15 team, by 30 in the championship game in Baha Mar on Friday. And I got to thinking, after watching Purdue dominate the Red Raiders from tip to finish on Friday night, how long could this run last for Purdue? How long could Purdue continue to dominate its opponents? Now, with that said, this is college basketball, and we saw the night before Memphis, a team that is now 1-4, take Purdue to the wire in Baha Mar and be really, really competitive. But I started to look at Purdue's schedule, and I started to break everything down when you take into account the lack of travel that Purdue is going to have between now and when the calendar flips into 2026. And I got to thinking about the advantages that Purdue will have by playing so many games inside the state of Indiana. And I think there is a real chance, a better than likely chance, that Purdue will go 13-0 into 2026, into a January 3rd meeting against Wisconsin. If you're watching on YouTube, look at the schedule right there. The next game for Purdue is a bye game against Eastern Illinois. Then Big Ten play starts for the Boilers. There is a road game against Rutgers in Piscataway. Keep in mind, this is a Rutgers team that lost a bye game to Central Connecticut last week. I don't see this Rutgers team beating Purdue at home, regardless of how much the rack, and it will always be the rack, plays a factor. Then on CBS, December 6th, you have the biggest roadblock, in my opinion, Iowa State at Mackey Arena. Now, Iowa State is a very capable team. TJ Altenberg has done a great job. Iowa State going to play St. John's later today in the Players Era Festival in Las Vegas. But I am still not sure if Iowa State has the requisites to go to Mackey Arena and win that game. And then look at what's after that. Minnesota at Mackey Arena, Purdue's not losing that game. Marquette, this Marquette team at Mackey Arena, Marquette already has 3 losses on the season. Marquette's not going to Mackey Arena and winning. Auburn at Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis. Stephen Pearl coached a great game against Houston a couple of weeks ago, is going to coach a couple more big games this week in Vegas, but I don't see Auburn going to Indianapolis and beating Purdue. And then you have a bye game against Kent State. If Purdue can get through Iowa State on December the 6th, I think there is a real chance that the Boilermakers are going to go into 2026 with a 13-0 record going into that Saturday game on January 3rd against Wisconsin. It is all in front of Purdue. And if you're Purdue right now and you're thinking about the big picture, and I've talked about this with Matt Painter and I've talked about this on the show, it's really difficult when you are a team that knows your fate is going to be determined in the NCAA tournament, and you bring such a large percentage of your team back, to have the mental stamina to understand you are not going to begin the NCAA tournament as a 1 seed in the Midwest region. But that's what Purdue is working towards. And the geographic locations of the NCAA tournament play a major role in whether or not a team is able to accomplish its goals. And I'll tell you right now why the Midwest region and being the 1 seed is so important for Purdue. If Purdue were to get the number 1 seed in the Midwest region, and if Purdue were to play at the United Center in Chicago for the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8, that is only 124 miles from Mackey Arena. That gives Purdue an incredible opportunity and an incredible advantage to go back to the Final Four for the second time in 3 years. And as we know, the Final Four this year is at Lucas Oil Stadium. And look, another thing we have to look at in this climate with this Purdue team, it is extremely rare what's going on with Purdue in terms of the level of retention that Matt Painter has achieved with this basketball team. Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, and Trey Kaufman-Wren weren't just starters on the team that went to the national title game and lost to UConn in 2024. They all have not played for another program in college basketball. That is very unique. Trey Kaufman-Renn, keep in mind, redshirted and has spent 5 years with the Boilermakers. I remember being at a Purdue practice, okay, prior to the 21-22 season, and I said to Matt Painter, who's that? And I pointed at Trey Kaufman-Renn. He says, it's Trey Kaufman-Renn. He's going to be really, really good for us, but I'm going to redshirt him because I have Mason Gillis, Zach Edey, and Travion Williams. And now Trey Kaufman-Renn is having a first-team All-American caliber season. He's rebounding the ball better than he ever has. Trey Kaufman-Renn, and nobody's really talking about this, is getting approximately 5 rebounds more per game than he did last season. I talked last week about Oscar Clough coming in, cleaning things up inside, but the guy also that is starting to come to the forefront for Purdue is CJ Cox, who's really asserting himself offensively, averaged 14 in the Baha Mar tournament. We don't know yet if this Purdue team is going to be a truly great team. And what I mean by that is you can't just throw around the term great with certain teams in college basketball. It has to be earned. If I go back over the course of history, there are certain teams that obviously I look at and you can say without hesitation, that was a great team. UConn in 2024 was a great team. Baylor in 2021, the team that met Gonzaga, who was undefeated in the national title game, was a great team. Gonzaga, even though it didn't win the national championship, was a great team. Then you look at the Villanova team that won in 2018 with Brunson, with DiVincenzo, with Bridges, with Pascal, with Spellman. That was a great team. But I look at college basketball now, and I see 10 to 12 really good teams. I don't know yet if we have a truly great team in the sport this season. But you know as well as I do, this is only November, at least for another week. And I also want to point out this, because we talked about Purdue's last win, that 30-point thrashing over Texas Tech. Texas Tech defensively has a long ways to go. Texas Tech also, I think it should be pointed out, is moving forward this season without several key players who were a part of last year's run to the Elite Eight, where Texas Tech had a major lead late in the game against Florida, who came back and beat Texas Tech and went on to win the national championship. Just think about this when you're evaluating the Red Raiders. And I know I put a lot of stock in the value of retention, as we all should when we're evaluating teams in college basketball. Texas Tech has 2 all Big 12 first-team caliber players in Christian Anderson and JT Toppin. Toppin was the first-team All-American last year. He was obviously the Big 12 player of the year last year. We know that. And Anderson's ready to assume the title of being one of the best players in that conference and one of the best guards in the country. But beyond that, there are still some questions for me, because you have to think a little bit about what Texas Tech lost from last season's team that was inches away from the Final Four. 52-43. 52-43. What was that? That was what Chance McMillan last year shot from the field and shot from the three for Texas Tech. Donovan Atwell and Tyree Bryan are now in position where that is what they are trying to step in for. And the guy who was next to JT Toppin last year up front, Darian Williams, looks like one of the top 5 players in college basketball right now with the work he's doing at NC State. I'm going to get to the Maui Invitational later in the show, but I'm telling you right now, Darian Williams is playing like appointment television. He's scoring. He's rebounding. He's distributing when he gets the opportunity. And here's the thing I love the most about Darian Williams. The game never gets too fast for him. Purdue in a driver's seat to be 13-0 going to 2026. Texas Tech with a lot of work to do. Still has LSU, still has Arkansas, still has Duke on December 20th at Madison Square Garden before we get to 2026. But still a lot of things to continue to work on for the Red Raiders.